Welcome back in live to another episode of Rock Boys Football. We are continuing with our college football bowl previews as we go to the guaranteed rate bowl between the West Virginia Mountaineers and the Minnesota Golden Gophers. This is another great inner Power 5 conference battle between the Big Ten Minnesota Gophers and the Big 12 West Virginia Mountaineers. The line, there's not many opt-outs to note. The one big opt-out is Letty Brown is opting out for the West Virginia Mountaineers. He's the leading running back with 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns during the season. He was he was like the feature guy in this offense, so it is a pretty substantive opt-out. That being said, we've seen Tony Mathis, their backup, pick up the slack when he needs to. He had just under 20 carries in that Kansas game and did pretty well with them, averages 4.5 yards per carry. So I'm not thinking it's going to be as big of a problem for the West Virginia Mountaineers as many think. Let's get to the lines real quick. Minnesota comes in as a pretty good favorite, 5-point favorite, minus 200 on the money line. The over/under is very low, as it normally is with the Golden Gophers playing at 45. Dill, what are your general thoughts on this game? What do you got for us?
So my general thoughts are this game. I don't think either team has like a clear advantage to me. On the one side of the ball, Minnesota's going to be able to kind of hammer it on West Virginia. That's a smaller athletic front, and they are a very good pass rushing unit. But you don't need to be a good pass rushing unit against Minnesota because they really don't throw the ball that much. And when they do, I think Morgan, for all his other faults, does do a good job getting the ball out fairly quickly. So I don't see a strike. I kind of see both teams being able to kind of match up well on both sides of the ball, respectively. Because I also think West Virginia, if you can't put pressure on Gagey, or if you can really shut him down. Because I don't think he's the most composed quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I think that you're kind of looking at a problem. Along with the fact, I will say, as much as like Letty Brown may not be as big of a factor in the run against Minnesota, they did use him to spread the field, and he was a very good pass catcher at about 230 yards, and nobody else in that backfield was catching passes. So I do think you want to spread Minnesota out, very unathletic linebacking play. So I think the Letty Brown injury, for as much as it may not impact the running game a ton, because that's not what West Virginia per se does, but it will probably hurt them in the pass game, and it will hurt them in terms of spreading Minnesota out. So just looking at that, I think you got two matchups. I don't see anything that jumps out like, ooh, I think this team really will have an upper hand.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point with Letty Brown, the missing Letty Brown, because one of the things that I've seen, you can attack a relative. I think you're not giving Minnesota defense enough credit. Obviously, it's pretty easy to put up good defensive numbers when your offense runs the ball and plays as slow as they do. They run 90. They're 97th in plays per game, so they run very, very slow offense. But they've only given up 18.3 points per game, which is it's a very good stat. And I agree with one of the
big. It's not hard to do in the Big Ten West. It's such a poor offensive team, and
Iowa
gave up some points to Nebraska. They gave up some to Nebraska, and when they played a real offense, they got shredded in Ohio State. So
and I think that was the biggest thing when you talk about those unathletic linebackers. Like, they're good. I think they're solid. Both those linebackers lead the team 1 and 2 in tackles, and it's not really that close between the next guy. That being said, they don't have the greatest sideline to sideline speed. So when you're playing a team like Wisconsin, it's in a phone booth, it's physical. Those linebackers are good. Against Iowa, it's good. Northwestern, it's good. Illinois, it's good. But when you play teams that like to spread it out a little bit more and make you cover all inches of the field, they struggle a little bit. We saw Ohio State kind of capitalize on that. I think West Virginia might be able to capitalize on that as well.
I think they do use the screen well. They do spread the field, and they have some athletes. So this game's hard for me to see. I don't see anything like I love in terms of the matchups, because I think they both can exploit each other on the offensive side.
I'm interested. I think Minnesota really is going to be able to run the ball in West Virginia. They're a little bit of a smaller front, West Virginia, but they do get in the backfield, and they're quite disruptive. Dante Still's a guy who has 13 tackles for a loss. They have another guy who's 10 tackles for a loss. Like, they can get into the backfield knife.
But Minnesota was, I think, pretty good. Like, they're pretty tight in their offensive line. They don't give up a ton ton of
They're solid.
TFLs
And they bring in
in that
6
run
guys
game.
every time. They literally have
Yeah.
6 offensive linemen at a time with like a tight end who's probably should just be playing offensive tackle.
Because I think a lot of those TFLs come on those spread teams,
Yeah.
like teams that are playing a spread and maybe less physical, so that athleticism on their defensive line kind of can shine.
The thing that I'm thinking is it's really hard to beat a team that can just mash it down your throat. Jarrett Daigie's throwing 11 interceptions,
that's
averaging
fair.
about 11 interceptions a game. When you've seen West Virginia struggle, it's because he's turning the ball over. You can't give Minnesota that many possessions because they're just going to methodically work their way down the field and score points. And I think they're going to be able to do that against this West Virginia team, which gets me to our picks. I like West Virginia -5. I don't love it. I'm probably not going to personally take it, but that's my lean. I just don't love taking I don't like taking Minnesota to cover 5 points when they barely score 20 a game. But that's my lean that I have. What are you leaning towards?
I mean, my initial thought is West Virginia money line. I just again, what my problem is, Minnesota doesn't take the ball away. That's how you beat West Virginia, is you force Daigie to make bad mistakes, and Minnesota just hasn't consistently done that. And I think the spread doesn't hurt us. So I just see both teams have kind of ways to exploit each other, and you kind of setting a pretty big spread for Minnesota.
Yeah, I agree with
who's
that.
had some major inconsistency. So
what about that total?
I want to say under, because I think you're gonna because just how slow Minnesota plays. That's kind of my thought. Is just
well, you said it right though. That's a low under, especially for a bowl game where PJ Fleck's probably going to be pulling out some crazy ass plays. That's what he's going to do. You've seen it. We've seen it all bowl game long. People are going to go for it on fourth down. They're gonna go for a flea flicker. They're gonna go for a double pass. And that Minnesota, to their credit, that's what they're good at, is they run, and then they just look for a play action explosive to Chris Autman-Bell.
And Autman-Bell's good, so he can make those plays.
I like the over. That's probably my favorite play of the game. You said it best. I mean, both offenses, they line up pretty good against their opposing teams. Minnesota is going to be able to run it on a relatively small front, and West Virginia is probably going to be able to get it out to the perimeter and beat them on the perimeter. And so
I just worry about the speed of Minnesota. They play so slow.
I agree, but if you score 3 touchdowns and the other team scores 3 touchdowns,
you're kind of right there.
It's right there. And then you pick 6, special teams. Bowl games are crazy.
Daigie he could toss pick 6. I know Minnesota doesn't do it.
Daigie will throw a pick 6. Yeah.
He does screw up a lot. So
yeah. And so that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. I mean, this West Virginia team just gave up 28 points to Kansas their last game of the season. Kansas stinks.
Yeah, Kansas is bad.
Minnesota's ended up their offense is looking not horrible down the stretch outside of that Illinois game. 41 points against the Northwestern team that does stink. They scored 22 against an Iowa team that also runs very, very slow. So that's not a horrible offensive showing. They scored 35 against an Indiana team that stinks, and 23 points against a Wisconsin team that's very, very good on defense. So, I mean, I like the over, and if I was forced to make a pick on the spread, take a side, I'm probably taking Minnesota -5. I think they're just a little bit more complete. And when you can run the ball as well as they run the ball, that's what I'm going to lay with.
Yeah, I got to say, this game's putting me in a pretzel straight up. I can't, I just can't make a choice. I mean, I can make good points for both sides in my mind.
And sometimes you just don't bet it.
I'm playing ping pong in my head. So
disciplined gamblers would say, "Hey, let's lay off it." The Rock Boys will probably bet it because you got to get that action at 9:15.
It's you're running out of football, so you
10:15 Eastern time. We're getting ready for bed. Want to feel a little bit of something after a long day of football. We'll be juicing it. So, I mean, we'll probably end up tweeting what we're taking. I'm leaning towards that over. I think it's a low over. I think West Virginia is going to be able to hit some explosives. I think Minnesota is going to be able to move the ball. So I think those are the picks. You got anything else?
No, I'm lost. I'm lost. I don't know what to say.
All right, that's a review for the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. I think it's gonna be a fun one. They'll set a rest. The teams match up well against each other. PJ Fleck's a fun guy to watch.
I hate him, but whatever.
It's gonna be a good game. As usual, appreciate you guys chilling with us. We'll be back later with some more previews. That's a review. Peace.